Julie, my phone buzzed again. Can you please tell me why a federal contractor is asking about soil reports from 2009? That was 8:54 on a Monday morning. By then, I had already refilled my chip travel mug twice with breakroom coffee that tasted like burned regret and low morale. Bitter, tired, but functional, just like everyone else in that fluorescent lit corporate fish tank. And of course, I could handle it. I always handled it. Just like I had handled the 6 client freakouts last week, and the 4 crisis calls the week before that. There was always a fire somewhere, and somehow it always landed at my desk. I pinched the bridge of my nose, took a breath that felt heavier than it should have, and said the line I had practically tattooed on my soul after 9 years in this company. I am on it. That was me. The calm in the storm. The one who quietly taped the entire operation back together while everyone else ran around announcing their brilliance after juggling one flaming pin. I had spent nearly a decade holding this place upright, saving our crown jewel count, the $290 million Lander and Holt Energy contract, from collapsing under its own weight. Federal oversight, EPA clauses, DOE compliance, interstate grid regulations, the kind of work that sounded like alphabet soup to most people. But for me, it was muscle memory. I could unravel a regulatory crisis with one hand while eating stale birthday cake from the break room with the other. And I never asked for praise. I never needed a plaque, or a LinkedIn post stuffed with corporate-scented hashtags, or some internal award no one outside this building cared about. All I ever wanted was respect. Basic, human, professional respect. Spoiler, I wasn't getting it anymore. And hey, if you've ever been the person who holds an entire system together while everyone else takes credit for not ruining anything in their 2-hour work window, hit like and maybe subscribe. Because trust me, this story goes places. This story goes places. If I have to relive this corporate train crash, you might as well be here for the twist at the end. Back to Monday. I had just soothed our Lander and Holt rep, Nain, a woman known for threatening lawsuits if a footer font changed by accident. I was halfway through drafting our recovery email when I heard heels chirping toward my desk. Hey, Jules, Madison said, all sugary confidence and expensive perfume. The CEO's daughter. Self-appointed EVP of strategy. Her entire strategy career up to that point consisted of posting inspirational quotes over stock farm photos on our corporate Instagram, like a barn was a metaphor for synergy. We should really talk about modernizing your role, she said, sipping matcha and wearing a blazer like it was a costume. And just like that, my spine tightened. Corporate translation. We are out to make your life a living spreadsheet version of Dante's Inferno. I had survived 5 leadership changes, a merger, 2 budget freezes, and 1 CFO who thought flirting with Excel puns was charming. But nothing prepares you for a nepotism-powered tornado who thinks strategy means adding emojis to PowerPoints. She once asked our biggest energy client if power plants came with free car washes. Yes, really. I watched Nain blink so slow I swear I could hear the disappointment settle in the air. So when Madison leaned on my desk that morning, tapping at my contract tracker like it personally offended her, I knew something dark was brewing. You do a lot of hands-on communication, she chirped. But have you considered automating that with, like, a Google form? A Google form for DOE and EPA compliance workflows. Somewhere, a nuclear safety officer probably felt a disturbance in the force. But I smiled, nodded, and pretended she had just invented electricity. That's what you do when someone with a last name made of pure privilege decides to climb the corporate ladder and use your spine as a rung. The rest of the week blurred into paperwork, panic, and too many nights where sleep felt like a rumor. I solved everything again. The client even emailed me a thank you. That was gold. For 2 whole minutes I actually felt seen. Then at 4:52 p.m. my calendar pinged. Meeting. 5:0 p.m. Our room, 4B. No sender. No subject. Just dread in Outlook format. Anyone who has worked long enough in a corporation knows this signal. You feel it in your bones before you understand it in your brain. I packed my folder like a soldier checking armor. Then I walked to room 4B like someone heading toward a door they already know leads to the end of something. And when I stepped inside, Madison was already there, sitting like royalty at a petty coronation, HR beside her, looking like someone who had been forced to choose between loyalty and unemployment. That was the moment I knew. The girl who walked into room 4B wasn't the same girl who would walk out. If she walked out at all. Julie leaned back in the chair and let the room breathe around her. Madison greeted me with that breathy fake authority managers practice in the bathroom mirror, thanking me for coming on such short notice like she was doing me a favor instead of sharpening a knife. I didn't reply. After years of being the adult in every room, you learn that silence can slice cleaner than any smart reply. Let them talk. Let them cut themselves first. Madison cleared her throat and folded her hands like she was posing for a corporate brochure titled, Women Who Lead, Whether They Should or Not. She started with the classic opener, "This isn't easy." Then, she tossed out phrases about departmental synergies and strategic redundancy, glancing at Carla like she deserved a gold medal for pronouncing corporate bingo words. Finally, she landed on the real line. Your role is no longer aligned with our forward-facing initiatives. Translation, you are done here, sweetheart, and please leave before you stain my fresh manicure with your dignity. I looked at Carla. Poor thing. Her eyes jumped like she was allergic to eye contact. R always turns into a guilt sponge when leadership decides who to sacrifice to the goddess of quarterly goal. Madison kept talking in that chirpy tone, like a cheerful vacuum cleaning up people's careers. She said they appreciated everything I had done, but they were streamlining account oversight to create a more agile structure. I didn't blink. I kept my voice level, calm enough to scare them. You're firing me. The pause that followed cracked the air open. Madison smiled like she invented kindness. It's not about you per se, she said, which is corporate, for it is absolutely about you. We just don't want to feel bad about it. We'll be handling the clients ourselves now. And there it was, the blade wrapped, in progress. Carla slid a manila envelope across the table. Severance. NDA. The usual, corporate goodbye, kit. Madison asked if I had any questions while already tapping at her phone like I was just an annoying calendar alert. End of day. To pack up. I glanced at the clock, 5:07 p.m. I opened the envelope, scanned the terms, then let out a soft laugh, the kind that says you have no idea what fuse you just lit. No questions, I said. I stood, smoothed my blazer, slid the envelope back like a bill for a meal I never ordered, and walked out. No tears, no raised voice, no scene. Which probably disappointed her. Bullies always expect theatrics. They want your rage, so they can pretend they were right. Instead, I walked calmly to my corner desk, the one with the skyline view I earned through years of late nights and crisis calls, and dragging sinking clients back to the surface. My nameplate still gleamed from when I polished it after the last quarterly win. I sat, logged in, and pulled up the folders. No deleting files, no messy revenge, just one neatly labeled set of contracts left open. Proof of loyalty. Proof of structure. Proof of who really held this place together. I closed everything else. Then I slid a flash drive into the port and copied one file. Not vengeance, protocol. Evidence always sleeps better offline. I grabbed my framed photo of my mom. Her voice echoed like a warm shield. Don't ever let pretty shoes steal your dignity, baby. I tucked it into my tote. I left the rest. The pens, the mug, the plant someone gave me during flu season. Let them keep the scraps. I passed Madison in the hallway on the way out. She was laughing with someone from finance, already moved on from the body she thought she buried. She didn't notice me. Good. Some storms do their best work quietly. Outside, the sky hung heavy, metallic, and charged like it was holding its breath for lightning. I stood there for a second too long, feeling the air tighten around possibility. Then I smiled. Not because I was fine, not yet, but because I knew something she didn't. That contract she thought she inherited still had a live wire in it, and she had just walked straight into a legal buzzsaw wearing designer heels. By the time I got home, I had peeled off my blazer and the shock both. The dog barely glanced at me, which honestly felt right. Loyalty is fickle when someone else holds the treats. I set my bag down, poured a glass of wine. Not a celebration, more like a ritual cleansing. a way to rinse the corporate dust out of my lungs. Then I opened my laptop because here's the thing, I don't go quietly. I don't forget clauses. I don't skip fine print. I am the woman who writes the follow-up memo before the meeting ends, the one who remembers every amendment filed at 11:42 a.m. after a compliance fire drill. 6 months ago, after a nearly disastrous multi-agency audit threatened the Lander and Holt account, I negotiated a renewal clause that required me by name as the primary liaison. Not ego, continuity. The client's general counsel insisted, and Madison, in her rush to be powerful, forgot that paper lives longer than pride. She thought she closed a chapter. She just opened the litigation season without reading the weather report. And as I sat there sipping wine and letting the evening settle over me, I realized something simple and sharp. They treated my exit like an ending. But this, right here, was only the first page. The moment someone in that room said, "We cannot afford another shuffle," I knew they were right. So, we put it in writing, every word like a steel lock clicking shut. Amendment 9 Section 14C, tied directly to Contract 3BD. Executed, time-stamped, signed, still active, still binding, and violated the second Madison opened her glossy mouth and chirped, "We will handle the clients ourselves." I did not forward the document out of bitterness, and not because I wanted a scene. I forwarded it because it was my job, even if 5 minutes earlier, they had stripped the title from my email signature. I opened Outlook like a surgeon entering an operating room. No emotion, no spark, just precision. Subject, Continuity Clause, Lander and Holt. Contract 3B290. Body, clinical and sharp enough to cut glass. Per the attached executed amendment dated April 4. I am formally flagging a potential compliance breach related to service continuity for Lander and Holt Energy. Please confirm receipt. Attachments, Amendment 9, Kainki PDF, Contract 3BD290 PDF. CC, Internal Legal Counsel. BC name Carson, Lander, and Holt General Counsel. I clicked send and sat still as the cursor blinked back at me, wine untouched, heartbeat steady as a metronome. This was not revenge, this was documentation. Paper cuts as weapons. Signatures as swords. Then I opened the contract again because thoroughness is not paranoia, it is armor. There it was, in bold, Section 14C. If the assigned liaison, Miss Julie Rayner, is terminated, transitioned, or removed from the project without written client consent, the action constitutes a material breach of contract, and the client may immediately reevaluate or terminate the agreement with cause. Straightforward, simple, unmistakable, and signed by none other than Madison L. Rhee, EVP of Strategy. Sweet, clueless Madison, proud like a peacock who thinks feathers make her bulletproof. I closed the files and scheduled a second email for 7:45 a.m. The next morning, same documents, different target list. The CFO, the VP of Client Services, and my ex-manager, the one who once smirked and said, "You are too thorough, Julie. Nobody reads footnotes." They read them now. They read everyone. I shut the laptop, finally drank my wine, let the dog out into the cool night air, and took the trash to the curb like it was any ordinary Thursday. But the air around me felt different, charged, like the quiet moment before thunder rolls in. It was not fear, it was clarity. Madison did not fire me. She amputated the only limb quietly keeping this company balanced, and she did not know it yet, but the nerves were about to scream. Sleep did not come easy that night, but I did not need it. The domino was already tipped. At 7:58 a.m., the building's HVAC hummed to life, colder, louder, like the walls themselves were bracing. And at 8:17 a.m., the scream arrived. The CEO, Grant Rhee, silver hair, initials on his cufflinks, the kind of executive who wipes his hand after shaking a senators, opened his inbox and saw the subject line, "No leader wants before their second espresso. Service termination, immediate risk flag. Contract 3B290. Name Carson had replied. Precise. Surgical. Merciless. 5 lines, each one a hammer. We have received documentation suggesting a breach of contract. Termination of Miss Julie Rayner without prior consultation may constitute a violation of Clause 14C. Grounds for immediate reevaluation and termination with cause. Please advise. No greeting. No signature. No emotion. Just impact. Grant reread it, then again. Each repetition tightened something behind his ribs. Then his eyes drifted left toward the open door across the suite. Madison sat scrolling through her phone, legs crossed like someone who had never been held accountable for anything in her life. Grant rose slowly, like a man surfacing from deep water. He walked to her doorway, stopped, and spoke in a voice barely louder than a breath. Tell me you did not terminate her active contract. Madison blinked, confused, casual. What? Grant's fingers curled around the printout like he was hanging on to the last thread holding the world steady. He didn't waste a single syllable. No lecture, no raised voice, just a quiet storm brewing behind his eyes as he walked into Madison's office and placed the paper on her keyboard. The sheet landed so gently that the sound barely registered, but the weight of it might as well have been a courtroom gavel. She skimmed the first line, then the second, then scrolled down with a nervous flick. Back up, down again. And then it hit her. That little breathless choke people get when they realize the crack they stepped on was not a crack at all, but a fuse, and it was already burning. I didn't know it was active, she whispered, voice trembling. Nobody told me about Clause 14. Grant didn't blink. He stared at her like someone staring at a raccoon standing in their open fridge, proudly chewing raw chicken, oblivious to its own doom. Clause 14C, he said, voice low, tight, and terrifying in its calm. Was added after you approved the amendment. You signed it, April 4th. Her face drained. No one flagged it. Julie didn't need to flag it, he shot back. Still quiet, still razor sharp. Julie wrote it. Madison swallowed hard. Whatever excuse she was trying to stitch together fell apart before it reached her tongue. Across the office, phones vibrated like alarm bells trapped in tiny glass cages. Grant walked back to his desk, already seeing missed calls stack up. Internal counsel, client services, executive liaison. Executive liaison. One missed call. Then 2. Then 3. The office air shifted, thickening into that eerie hush that only comes right before the fire alarm goes off. People moved faster. Shoulders lifted. Chairs scraped. A low hum of controlled panic seeped across the floor. The CEO turned back to his daughter, voice steady, the kind that chills a room without rising above a whisper. You don't get to streamline a $290 million account by firing the person named in the compliance clause. Madison's lip trembled. I didn't fire her. I realigned the department. Then renegotiate, he said, jaw tight. She was under contract. Madison reached for the high ground and fell into a ditch instead. Maybe if your company wasn't so reliant on one person. And that was when Grant shattered her. If your last name weren't mine, he said, you'd be updating our Twitter bio right now. Silence thickened. Real silence. The kind that makes even the printers stop whirring. Someone dropped a binder. A junior analyst fumbled a coffee. Grant sat down, elbows on desk, palms on his forehead, staring at the clause glowing on his screen like a warning light on a jet engine. Clause 14C. Julie's name. The fuse was already lit. And somewhere far from that spinning office floor, Julie Rayner sipped her coffee, watching sunrise paint the skyline soft pink. Calm. Dot. Ready. Ready. She knew the first domino had tipped. 8 more waited behind it. By 10:02 a.m. the chaos had teeth. Legal was pulling files like a kitchen staff spotting a cockroach. Pages flipped. Search bars filled with desperate queries. Alternate liaison? Transition memo? Authority delegation? Anything? Nothing. No replacement liaison filed. No transition plan. No client consent notice. Just one breezy HR line from Madison. Julie Renner has exited as part of restructuring. Her duties will be absorbed by the strategy team. Absorbed. As if a 27-year-old with a minor in media psychology and a Canva habit could replace a woman who negotiated federal audits before breakfast. By 10:38, client services had called 3 times. No answer. A fourth rolled straight to voicemail. Emails read but ignored. No acknowledgement. No courtesy reply. Just corporate silence, the kind that feels like a guillotine raised but not dropped yet. By 11:07, the weekly standing call with Lander and Holt was missed. A call that had never once been skipped. Not during wildfires. Not during a 3-day blackout. Not even when Nain's husband totaled their Prius and she took the meeting from a tow truck. The building held its breath. Grant didn't send invites. Didn't prepare slides. Just wrote 4 names on a whiteboard. CEO, Legal Finance, Madison. The glass wall conference room was sealed behind drawn shades. No one dared look directly at it. Legal opened the meeting like bullets fired in a hallway. No successor appointed. No transition notice. No client approval. Every word landed like steel on concrete. And outside that room, the company held still, waiting for the next crack in the earth. The kind that swallows careers whole. Madison stood there like a statue carved out of pride and poor judgment, arms crossed so tight you would think she was trying to hold her entire career together with her elbow joints. No transition period, no grace, no breathing room for the fallout she had created. Every time someone pushed back, her arms pulled in tighter, muscles coiling like a snake cornered in its own terrarium. "I do not see what the big deal is," she said, voice sharp and brittle, as if pretending confidence could substitute for competence. Cheryl from finance finally broke her silence, and even her tone sounded like it had been dipped in vinegar. "It is not like we fired Bay for fun," she said, and reminded everyone, crisp and clear, that Bay was the named liaison. The name mattered. The contract mattered. Every signature, every clause, every technicality was not decoration, it was power. And Bay's name was the lock that kept the client relationship stable. Madison waved her hand like she was brushing aside a fruit fly. "That name was just a compliance detail, right? We are the vendors. We decide the roles." She grabbed her water bottle with both hands like hydration could shield her from consequences. But legal counsel, tired in that deep, bone-level way only lawyers in corporate disasters get, adjusted her glasses and said with slow emphasis, "Not when the contract mandates the personnel. That is enforceable. That is not an optional language. That is the law sitting right in your inbox." Madison scoffed like she had been personally wronged by reality. "Why didn't someone flag this earlier?" she asked. The room froze. Grant stopped pacing mid-stride, turned his head, and spoke with the kind of quiet that makes everyone sweat. "You signed it. You pushed for full control of client-facing ops. Legal sent you the final version. You signed without reading." Madison blinked, confused and defensive. "I thought Julie handled all that legal stuff," she whispered. Cheryl did not even look up when she answered. Julie was the legal stuff. No one laughed. No one wanted to. Grant turned away, hands planted on his hips, breathing in those shallow, tight bursts you get when panic sits heavy in your ribs. Then he asked the question everyone feared. "What is the damage if they walk?" Cheryl slid her tablet across the table, one simple slide shining like a death sentence. Q4 losses, 61.2 million. Secondary accounts at risk. Vendor rating downgrade. Red flag at federal levels. 18 months to recover, if they recovered at all. The silence that followed did not die, it spread. It slithered through the vents, crept across the conference table, and wrapped around every throat. Madison cracked first. Okay, we just need to rebuild trust. I will fly out. I will write a heartfelt letter. Maybe bring muffins." Cheryl finally looked up. "We could do a video too," she offered dryly, "like a documentary about our downfall would fix it." Legal blinked like she had been struck with a binder. Grant picked up a pen, clicked it 3 times, then snapped it in half. No one flinched. They all knew something had just broken far more important than a pen. Then the whispers started, soft as dust. Did she even have the authority to fire Julie? 3 heads lifted, eyes darted, fear blooming quiet and fast. Soon, HR was digging through systems, compliance was unearthing memos, and someone found the clause. Julie's role was protected. Client mandated. Fireable only by a review panel co-signed by 2 executives. And then, The kicker. One clause tucked inside a nepotism policy from 2021. It barred direct relatives of the CEO from making unilateral decisions to remove client-appointed personnel. And guess who Madison was? The niece. Almost on cue, another email hit. Not the main account this time, but still a major one. Renewable energy vendor, Phoenix office. Subject polite. Body ice cold. They were freezing all initiatives until they confirmed personnel alignment. Cheryl stood up so fast her chair rolled. "You have got to be kidding me," she shouted. Even the intern jumped like someone fired a gun. And where was Madison through all of this? In her glass office, barefoot, pacing like a trapped actress in a drama she accidentally wrote. Shoes abandoned, hair twisted into a frantic bun, phone glued to her ear. Trying to call me again. And again, as if I could rescue her from the fire she lit with her own signature. By 3:15 p.m. the storm was fully alive, and she was still trying to sound calm enough to survive it, unaware that the ship had already taken water and every lifeboat was full. It went straight to voicemail, which felt fitting. The screen lit up with her name and then faded, and a second later her voice spilled into the empty room. High, breathless, and sugary, like a college girl trying to sound innocent after she just crashed her father's brand new Mercedes and wanted the world to believe she barely noticed. "Hi, Julie. Hey, just checking in. Wanted to see how you're doing. We're working through a few hiccups on our end, and I think it would be really helpful to reconnect, for continuity. No pressure. Call me whenever you can." Then, the line snapped off. Beep, beep. An hour later she tried again, but this time the mask cracked. That polished edge in her voice bled through. "Julie, Height. We need to talk. There has been some confusion, and I'd appreciate it if you could clarify a few things. The board might get involved soon, and I think it would reflect well on both of us if we were seen as cooperative. Please call me." I didn't. I wasn't in the mood to play crisis support for the same people who pushed me out and expected me to thank them for the shove. Besides, in that moment I was sitting at a sunlit patio table at Renner's Cafe downtown, sipping a cortado and smiling across the table at someone who actually understood contracts instead of pretending to. Her name was Dana Lai, senior partner at Preston Marks Consulting, one of the few firms with the clearance and muscle to handle multi-million-dollar federal energy accounts. And just to add a little sparkle to fate, she also happened to be an old law school friend of Nan Carson. Dana pushed her glasses down her nose and studied me with the kind of grin only lawyers get when someone else's disaster turns into opportunity. "Let me guess," she said. "They terminated your mid-contract without client sign-off, breached your continuity clause, and now they're losing accounts like a boat with a hole in its spine." I lifted my cup and smiled. "Something like that." She laughed, leaned back and shook her head. "Julie, I've seen a sloppy strategy. I've seen a reckless strategy. But this is fine dining grade foolishness." I shrugged lightly. "Not my mess anymore." Dana tilted her head, studying me. "Want it to be?" I didn't answer right away. A delivery truck honked down the block. Someone across the street tripped over a briefcase strap. Life just kept moving. The city didn't pause for anyone. But inside me, something shifted, like the ground had already cracked days ago, and now, finally, sunlight was slipping through those fractures. Back at the office, while I enjoyed a quiet afternoon coffee, Madison paced the hallway like a trapped animal, realizing the cage door had been open the whole time, and she still never learned how to leave. Her assistants avoided her eyes. The intern who once adored her suddenly walked around with earbuds like they were armor. The whole floor felt like a glass of water starting to vibrate just before it shatters. And me? I sat in the sun, sipped my cortado, and thought, no muffin platter is saving them this time. Then the alert hit. Silent notification, red calendar block, a meeting that appeared on every executive device at once. Board special session. Closed door. 6 p.m. sharp. Wattley. No delegates. CEO, CFO, general counsel, board members only. And right beneath it, clearer than an accusation, no daughter. By 5:45, the air in that building was tight enough to snap. Phones buzzed, but no one dared pick up. Conversations died, and the second elevators chimed. Even the janitor paused, leaning on his vacuum, because when a whole building holds its breath, people notice. Inside conference room 1A, the lights were low, the long polished table lined with untouched bottled water, and stress hung in the air like it had weight. Cheryl, the CFO, looked like she had not slept in 3 days. When Grant walked in, he didn't take the head seat. He sat 2 chairs down like he already knew authority had quietly slipped out of his pocket and walked away. Let's begin. Cheryl didn't bother with her usual smooth let-in. She tapped the screen. Numbers flashed, brutal and bright. If Lander and Holt withdraw, Q4 collapses. Not dips. Not stalls. Collapses. That contract supports 3 satellite portfolios, 2 joint ventures, and our DACA compliance baseline. If we take a federal breach flag, the vendor rating falls, the pipeline dries, and we spiral. Projected loss, $61.2 million, immediate. Silence. Thick enough to choke on. Then the general counsel opened. A paper folder, hand steady like she was about to read a verdict instead of a contract. I'd like to enter Clause 14C into the record. Nobody stopped her. Nobody breathed. In the event that the assigned liaison, Miss Julie M. Rear, is terminated, transitioned, or removed from active participation in the project, without written consent from Lander and Holt Energy, that removal shall be considered material breach of contract and grounds for immediate reevaluation of terms up to and including termination with cause. She turned the page, calm and slow. Amendment 9K, executed April 4, signed by Executive Vice President of Strategy, Madison Rear. And just like that, the room went still. The fallout had finally arrived. And I wasn't even there to watch. I was outside in the sun, drinking my coffee, free. Everyone in the boardroom already felt the weight of what was coming, but the final blow arrived with clinical precision. The contract had been active for 12 full months, with an automatic renewal clause that only dissolved if the company filed formal written notice 30 days in advance. No one had filed anything. The silence cracked like thin ice. Someone at the end of the table let out a hard breath, enough to fog glass if there had been any in front of them. Then the chairman spoke, his voice slow and steady, cutting through the room like a scalpel. So, to be very clear, not only did she terminate our key liaison mid-contract without client approval, she also violated an auto-renewed clause and ignored the mandatory notice period protocol. The general counsel nodded. That is correct, she confirmed. Cheryl leaned in, adding, and no secondary was ever designated, no backup, no shadow onboarding. It was a full dead-air handoff. A board member peered over their glasses, the weight of legacy hanging in the air. This wasn't just a failed handoff, it was the CEO's daughter who had done it. Grant's jaw tightened, a flicker of dread moving through him. The silence that followed wasn't awkward or unsure. It was radioactive, the kind that rearranges futures. The chairman pressed again, voice cold and clinical. And? You signed off on her promotion into that role. Grant swallowed. I did, he said. Against committee recommendation? A slow beat. Yes. And bypassing oversight protocols. His voice roughened. Yes. The general counsel folded her hands like she was closing a case file. Then you share responsibility for the breach, Mr. Ree, legally and operationally. The words shattered the room like a brick through glass. Cheryl delivered the finishing blow. And we've just received confirmation. Lander and Holt's procurement portal has revoked our admin access. We are officially locked out. No one cursed. No one panicked. The chairman simply closed his folder with a soft, devastating finality. We will draft a formal statement. No further communication from your daughter. No outreach. No rebuttals. From this moment forward, all contact goes through legal. His gaze locked on Grant. And Mr. Ree, the board will be holding a separate review session. Your presence will be requested, not required. Those words translated themselves in every mind. Start clearing your office. Grant didn't move. He couldn't. His bones felt carved from ice, his pulse ticking like a bomb someone else set, but he had given them the code. Outside the conference room, the hallway filled with whispered questions. No one dared voice. Inside, the CEO finally understood the full cost. Julie had built something irreplaceable, and he had let it slip through his fingers because he chose bloodline and favoritism over competence. And somewhere, probably already sipping tea at her kitchen counter, Julie knew exactly what they were discovering. She knew they weren't calling her in defeat, they were circling the wreckage she had left behind. Then, at 7:12 a.m., Friday morning, the reply arrived. No subject line. Just a blunt preview across 6 inboxes. We will now be working through Miss Julie M. Rayners. Cheryl saw it first. She stared at her screen for 10 long seconds, finger hovering, like touching a live wire. Then she clicked. The message was a single sentence, razor sharp. We will now be working through Miss Julie M. Rayners' independent consultancy. She understands our needs. All future correspondence should be directed to her firm. No anger. No threats. No legal fireworks. Just a decision. By 7:16, legal authenticity was confirmed. By 7:18, procurement showed a new vendor code. Vendor, J.R. Stratline Advisory, LLC Primary Liaison, Julie M. Rayner. The building reacted in fragments. An analyst stopped typing mid-keystroke. Someone dropped their coffee cup. Even the yit guy who played pop punk every morning paused his playlist mid-chorus. In the boardroom, early arrivals sat, frozen. No miracle was coming. Cheryl read the email out loud, once then again, and the second time no one breathed. Grant sat slack-jawed, still trying to understand if this was real or some bureaucratic nightmare. Madison didn't wait to process. She stood, folder snapping shut, voice sharp enough to cut marble. You all wanted her gone? She spat. Cheryl didn't blink. No, she replied in that icy calm tone. You wanted her gone. We tolerated you. That was the line that sliced the room clean in half. Madison spun toward the legal team, eyes wide, voice sharp enough to cut glass. Are you really letting this happen? Her tone throbbed with disbelief, like someone watching their kingdom crumble in real time. But legal did not flinch. They simply lifted the contract packet, calmly tapped the corner of the page, and in the dull echo of that gesture came the truth she did not want to face. You signed this. No one did this to you. You happened. That was it. For a heartbeat, she froze. Pride calcified into panic right behind her eyes. Then she grabbed her phone, muttered something that sounded like "I'm done," and stormed out. Her heels hammered the floor, each step a countdown to impact, like a war drum announcing retreat. No one chased her. No one even breathed loud enough to pretend they cared. Silence folded itself over the room. Only the soft hum of the projector filled the space, along with the faint, persistent vibration of Grant's phone, buzzing again and again. Press inquiries, shareholders, maybe even his wife asking why her husband had detonated the company's most stable relationship. No one moved. It felt like everyone was waiting for oxygen to return. Cheryl spoke first, voice low, measured. Well, at least we know who actually understands the business. Legal nodded once. And who doesn't? No one asked if Julie was coming back because they already knew. Julie didn't need them. They had not just lost a liaison. They had not just lost a contract. They had lost the person who kept the power grid alive when the wires were already sparking. And while they played politics, she had built her own generator, her own firm, her own future, forged from steel and strategy rather than ego. At 9:03 a.m., her LinkedIn quietly changed. Principal consultant at J.R. Stratline Advisory. High-risk account recovery and strategic continuity. No humble beginnings post. No new chapter emojis. No inspirational quotes. Just facts. Because Julie never chased applause. She let results do the talking, and results never stuttered. The boardroom emptied like a slow funeral march. Chairs scraped back, ties were loosened, shoulders slumped under invisible weight. Nobody lingered for hallway whispers or elevator gossip. There were no "we'll regroup" emails, no "let's circle back" promises. Everyone already knew they were standing inside the crater of their own decision. Grant stayed. Alone. The sun had dipped lower, light slicing across the table in harsh bars that looked like prison shadows. The projector had powered down, leaving the faint smell of dust and electricity, as if even the room was tired of them. On the table in front of him sat Amendment. 9. Neck. Clause 14c. Termination of designated liaison without client approval is breach. Below that line, 2 signatures, Julie M. Renner. Madison L. Rhee, Executive Strategy. Grant stared at it like the paper might apologize. Like the ink might soften. It did not. The truth held steady. The vote had passed with no debate. Julie would not be welcomed back. No apology tour, no desperate negotiation, no corporate backtracking. The door behind her was sealed, and she had built a new one somewhere else, one with her name printed in bold. Preston Marks had already approved the subcontractor agreement. Cheryl had already processed the purchase order. The retainer wire was already moving. They would pay Julie's new firm, not as a favor, not as a courtesy, but because they had no choice. They needed her. She did not need them. Grant lifted the paper and let it fall. It landed with a sound too soft for a decision that loud. Julie had never slammed a door, never thrown accusations, never packed her things in a cardboard box while everyone stared. She did not rage, she did not cry. She simply walked forward and let gravity handle the rest. Quiet power always hits hardest. He leaned back, stared at the ceiling, and somewhere down the hall Madison's office door clicked shut for the last time. It sounded final, like the end of a long, bad story. And that was when Grant, finally, said the only truth left. She didn't burn the bridge. His voice barely carried. She owned it. Across town, sunlight poured into an office that smelled like new carpet and clean ambition. Julie sat at her desk, posture calm, shoulders relaxed. Her phone was silent. Inbox clear. No fireworks, no champagne, no victory grin. Just control. Just certainty. Her name on her firm. Her signature on the deal. She did not need noise to win. Stillness was enough. And she was not angry. She did not gloat. She simply breathed, steady and sure, a quiet empire beginning where someone else's pride had ended. Control is louder than revenge will ever be.